Welcome to the LTC podcast, where we bring people from across the industry together to talk about what really makes the hospitality industry shine: the people. We will offer insights, guidance, and best practices when it comes to caring for the licensed hospitality workforce. In each episode, we'll be sitting down with someone from the industry or an expert in their field. We're diving into the real stuff, the challenges, the triumphs, and everything in between, to figure out how we can make our workplace better and happier for everyone. Our mission, it's pretty simple. We want to make sure that those of us in hospitality aren't just serving others, but also taking great care of ourselves and our colleagues. Hi, Alison.
Hi, Kaylee.
Thanks so much for joining me here today.
You're welcome.
Could you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do, please?
My name's Alison Peck. I work for the Licensed Trade Charity as a grants caseworker. So anybody who's in need, be it for immediate support, that they're going to be homeless or something like that, they can come to us and we can have a look at them, supporting them, or emotional well-being. They can call our helpline, which is 24/7 for them, and then they can pass the details on if they need any extra support.
Amazing. So what is it exactly that you do then as part of that process?
So I take the inquiries that we get from our helpline and I'll give the people a call, and I'll find out a little bit more information, more in-depth information about their circumstances, how they got into the situation and what support they need in order to help them get out of the situation as well.
Brilliant. So if you were to kind of like take me through some examples that you might encounter in your day, can you kind of give some examples as to kind of what people are struggling with and how the Licensed Trade Charity might be able to help in that situation?
At the moment, we're getting quite a few people calling up that they're going to be evicted from tied accommodation or private accommodation because they've fallen behind in their rent arrears. We can have the opportunity to stop them from being evicted at that point by helping them with rent arrears, depending on how much it is. Once we've done a full financial assessment of their situation and checking that they can sustain it moving forward, we can stop it before they get evicted. Or if they come to us and they've already got an eviction order in place, we can then help them to move out with removal costs and rent deposit to secure another accommodation.
So I guess it's like a sign of the times where if you're seeing an increase in people struggling with housing issues, that, you know, it's a sign of what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah, definitely, because especially with private landlords increasing their rent, because obviously with the housing situation and everything going up, and more people are struggling because the wages aren't going up to reflect everything going up, and they're not necessarily prioritising their rent. They might be prioritising heating and food, understandably, and then they fall into rent arrears, and then it's quite quickly that they can fall into this. After just a couple of months, they could own a couple of £1,000, and if they're not earning the money, they can't repay it.
So if we were to kind of look at the process of somebody approaching the Licensed Trade Charity from kind of, falling on hard times and wanting to reach out for some help, what is the process? What does it look like when somebody
so the process is we've got a 24/7 helpline, Care First. They take our initial calls for us. They'll take the minimal details, name, address, details of kind of what the situation is, and they'll pass it over to us. We then call them up and we ask them about their family situation, what the family makeup is. Do they privately rent, council? Do they own the property? What's their financial? Do they have lots of other debts, credit cards or loans? We try to look at it as a holistic approach rather than just kind of someone coming to us and saying they've got arrears of £1,000, they want £1,000. We would look at what the circumstances were in order to get that debt in the first place, what the financial assessment is. And then we would have a look to see what we can do to help them. It could be that they've been off sick for a little while. It could be with a physical illness, a mental illness. Are they in work? Are they returning to work? How long have they been off? Really to kind of look at it that we can put them in a much better place rather than, like I say, putting a sticky plaster over it, giving them money, and then in a couple of months' time, they're going to be in the same situation again. So once we've done that, we then send them an online application form. We send them a HMRC form so we can verify the time within the trade. They have to have done a minimum of 5 years within the licensed trade and a minimum of 16 hours, even if it's part-time. Once we've got that, and the last 3 months bank statements for all accounts, that any partners. If you've got a partner and they hold, you've got a partner and they share bank statements, we need them for both parties. And we need a list of all debts that they have. We then do a financial assessment and we look to see how we can best support them moving forward.
I think that's one thing that I really like about what the Licensed Trade Charity does. Like you were saying, is you help people, you look at people's circumstances in a holistic approach, and you're not just kind of focusing on what that one issue is that they've come to the charity with. So I think, what do you think the benefits are, like by approaching the situation like that?
I think it has a massive positive impact on people, because it could be that they've come to us for the washing machine's broken down, and they just need a new one, but they can't afford a new one. But asking them questions, it could be that the reason they can't afford a new one is because they've been ill, or they've been out of work, and then we can have a look at why have they been ill, why have they been out of work, is there other bills that we can have a look at supporting them with, can we have a look at them moving forward, do they have to take time off work because they're ill, or that they've got an illness of any sorts, and then we can take the pressure off of them by offering them a short-term hardship. So it could be that they've come to a washing machine, we can buy them a washing machine, but actually in order to get them better, so they don't have to take any more time off work and they can afford to take some time off, we can do them like a short-term hardship, so they can take a couple of months out, get themselves better, be it a physical or a mental illness, and take that little bit of pressure off. And what something might be sort of like a small amount to us is a massive impact for them, and making a positive impact for them.
I think as well, kind of to pick up on what you were saying, was that, we are here to help people, but we're not here to kind of spoon feed and like hand hold people, for a very long time. What the Licensed Trade Charity does is helps people get back on their feet. So what do they need right now in order to kind of self-sustain themselves going forward?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, what we try to give them the tools is to, like I say, if they've got debts and things like that, we encourage them to go to a debt organisation, make a plan, a repayment plan for them to be able to move forward, make a budget plan as well, to hopefully not get into that situation again. We also sort of like say, other places, are they claiming all the benefits they're entitled to? Because some people, they just don't know. If you've never been out of work before, no one's going to tell you how to claim benefits or what benefits to claim. So we kind of direct them on where to go for those things. And it's just about of putting them into a better situation moving forward, really.
And so if somebody rings the helpline kind of looking for emotional support, does that come through the offices, the charity offices? If somebody's looking for obviously immediate support, they get that from the helpline. But if they're looking for counselling sessions for themselves or their children, how does that process work?
So that works in that they call our helpline, and then they select for emotional support. If it's for themselves, they can get immediate access to trained counsellors. They can get the free sessions. They do an assessment to see what kind of counselling that they require, and to match them with a counsellor to meet their needs, really. If it's more in depth, or it's children's counselling, we also partnership with Relate. Most people associate Relate with marriage guidance, and it's not necessarily just about that. We offer young children's counselling as well, because that's more complex. So by calling up the helpline, they can get a referral to Relate, and we'll pay for the children's counselling and for the couples counselling or in singles counselling for them by getting the reference number, and then we can work with them that way. But those calls don't come through to us.
Okay. But it's incredible because, I mean, when you look at, if you're to look at going through the NHS and to get counselling, you could be waiting weeks, months, years, often best case scenario. But, if somebody in the trade needs counselling, by coming through the LTC helpline, there are no wait lists.
No, there are no wait lists. And also as well, what we try to encourage is, if you do have any emotional support or your mental health problems, is what we try to encourage is to use our services while you're waiting for the NHS to pick up, because they do say not to have counselling from two different people at the different times. So we say use our services first, and then hopefully 3-6 months down the line, the NHS will then kick in, and we'll be able to then have continuous counselling, albeit with different counsellors.
What is your favourite thing about the job that you do?
Is being able to tell people that they've been awarded. That's the best outcome, really, is that they may come to us, like I say, just for what they think is a simple fix of a fridge, freezer, cooker, white goods. And then we'll be able to help them, like I say, with a short-term hardship if they've been out of work, if they've been poorly. And then just to being able to call them up and say, this is what we can do for you and this is what we've been awarded. It's always such a lovely, lovely experience to give that call and say, this is how we can help you and support you.
And what kind of reactions do you get from people?
They're just overwhelmed by the support that we can offer, because it wasn't something that they ever even thought that they could have. And lots of people are kind of embarrassed and think that they shouldn't be coming to a charity for support. But I said that's what we're here for. Is no one predicts having a bad time or having a blip in their life, and that's what we're here for, is to give them that helping hand, put them back on an even keel, ready to move forward.
So how do you approach people when they do make that call and you are speaking to somebody and they're telling you kind of about their situation and how it's a really rough time for them? How do you navigate that conversation?
I just ask them more open questions, really, about what led them to that situation. I kind of like, and I can empathise with what they're going through, and I reassure them that it is only just a matter of a moment, albeit it might seem like there is no light at the end of the tunnel, but I do reassure them that there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is something that we can do, and if we can't do, we also work in partnership with Hospitality Action and the Drinks Trust as well. So depending on what support they want, we can always say there is something that we can do. We never say there's nothing we can't do.
So bearing in mind, if you think about kind of all the calls that we've taken or that you've taken over the past year, have you seen an increase in particular issues that people are suffering with? Or, what do we get the most calls about? Is there any patterns that kind of, you haven't seen before?
Mental health is a big one. We do have a lot of people coming to us struggling with anxiety and depression, not being able to work, just by being overwhelmed by the cost of living or not getting the hours that they need at work. Some people could be on a 0-hour contract and they never know from 1 month to another what their income's going to be. In the summer, we actually had quite a lot of people calling up, fleeing domestic violence, and that was men and women. And that was on the increase through the summer, just after the summer as well.
Wow. Those calls must be really hard to take in, though.
They are, but you always go with the mindset of, this is what I can do to help you. And this is what you've experienced, but we can help you and we can get you in a much better, safer place as well.
I think that's a really interesting point about what the LTC does, is that it's not a kind of, tick box, one thing fits all. When you look at people's situation and, the potential things that they're going through, we can help with a variety of different things, and that by kind of digging deeper and having conversations with people, you find the root cause of what's happening, but it doesn't have to kind of fall into any particular box in order to get the help that they need.
No, absolutely. And we also make sure that they're working with other services as well that can help them. We make sure that they do have that support network in place. And if they don't have that, we can then guide them to where to go for other support as well.
So what would you say to somebody in the industry who is kind of suffering right now?
I'd say definitely give us a call. We can always help you, no matter how small a thing you think it is. We can make a massive difference for you. And then just give us a call. It's always worth just that first call is the hardest to make, but once you've done that, it does get easier and easier. The process does get easier for you, and we can have a look to what we can do to support you.
I think sometimes as well, it's not easy kind of reaching out, but do you think is it easier to speak to somebody, a stranger, rather than kind of going to somebody that you might know? Is it easier to kind of open up about your situation?
I personally would say it's easier to talk to someone who doesn't know anything about you, because it's a non-judgment. You don't have to feel that anyone's judging you. Your friends won't be judging you either, but sometimes it's a little bit close to home. So I just pick up the phone and just start the conversation, and then it will just lead you down to a much better place.
So what is the process of a grant application?
So once we've done the financial assessment and we've made we've made an award, what we do is we'll ask for your if for example you want help with rent arrears, we'll then ask for a copy of your rent statement showing the arrears. We'll ask for your landlord's bank statements, and we'll pay them direct. We don't pay you the money that's owed. We always do make sure that it goes to the creditors, as well as if you have any utility arrears or council tax arrears. If it's a short-term hardship payment, we'll arrange vouchers for you to have on a regular basis, and they'll come from a company called Black Hawk. And you can use them in about 12 or 15 different stores as well, in order to make sure that you can spend them wisely.
So what are things that the Licensed Trade Charity can help with, and what are the things that we don't help with?
We don't help with legal fees. We don't help with private school tuitions. We do help with rent deposit and rent in advance. We do help with housing as well. We also work with anchor housing. So if you're over 55 and you're coming out of the licensed trade and you're looking for somewhere to live, we have higher priority. So you can come through to us. It's housing association properties. And then you can go on the list, but you'll get a higher priority because you're ex-licensed trade. So we can help with housing. We can help with debts, utility debts, council tax, rent debts.
So yeah, it's like priority debts and non-priority debts. Could you just give examples of what might be priority?
So a priority debt is council tax and rent arrears, because we don't want you to lose your home. Okay. Council tax, you can be taken to the bailiffs and incur further charges and even imprisonment as well with council tax. Non-priorities are your utilities, your mobile phones, that we wouldn't be able to look at supporting necessarily with them. Depends on how much you owe. We would then refer you to a debt organisation to make a payment plan, or even really in the first instance to contact the creditors, because so long as you contact creditors and you keep them informed of your circumstances, and even if you make a nominal payment, they are happy to take that. It's not an all or nothing kind of situation.
And then the LTC can help, somebody who's worked in the trade for 5 years or more, like financially with support, but we can also help other members of the family. How does that work, and what kind of circumstances allow for that?
So we can help partners or spouses of people who have worked within the licensed trade, and we can help dependent children, so under the age of 18. So if they're living at home and they're not earning an income, we can help those as well.
And how might we help children of
really, I mean, I suppose if they need a laptop or something like that for school, or they need tuition books, we can help with those as well. Again, there's been a high increase of children needing mental health support, and CAMS have a long waiting list at the moment of about 2 years. So although they're more complex, this is why we've teamed up with Relate in order to kind of get some support in place in early years to try and help prevent it from escalating into anything further. So with housing, so if you're facing homelessness, or you have a problem with your private rented accommodation or even housing association, we work in partnership with Shelter, where we can allocate you a housing officer, and they'll work with you and they'll give you the legal advice, and they'll help you with your debts as well if it's relating to your housing, and we can give you a one-to-one housing officer who can support you all the way through.
That's so good. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, they're really good. Yeah. We work with Renovo as well.
What do Renovo do?
Renovo, they help with CVs and interview skills as well. So if you've been out of work, or you've been in the same job for years and years, and all of a sudden you find yourself out of work, and you're applying, because everything's done online nowadays, you don't always get a response. You don't know if your CV's okay, if they've received it or not. So Renovo can help you get back into work by supporting you with how to write a CV and interview skills as well.
It's so good, because often if you've been in the same job for a few years on end, interviews are hard, right? Like especially if you've been out of the game for a period of time, like to have that kind of extra help.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think it's about you kind of how you hold yourself, how you conduct yourself as well. And those could be the small things that a prospective employer will be looking for, and you think, well, I've done this job for years, why can't I even get in the doorway? And it's about doing the covering letter and your CV to kind of be short, sharp, and to the point, really.
And if somebody was to call the helpline, like literally what happens when somebody picks up that phone and dials the number?
So they'll be answered by our Care First team, and they'll ask your details, your personal details, and they'll ask just a brief description of what's going on, what's your need, and then they'll pass it over to us, and that's where we then call up and we get a full understanding of your circumstances, and we go from there for you.
Bearing in mind licensed hospitality over the Christmas period is super busy and can be really full on, how can we support people over the festive period?
We've got a 24/7 helpline that take all our initial inquiries. So if you're suffering with stress or anything like that, then just give them a call. And like I say, they're open 24/7. So we know you're on shift work and everything, but just give them a call. If you feel that things are getting on top of you financially, make an application, make that first step, because although we can't help you before Christmas, we can help you in the new year. So a new year, new start, and you can start the process. And it does take about 6 to 8 weeks. If you are fortunate enough to be awarded anything, we do need to verify your time within the trade. So as soon as you feel that you might be heading towards that way, just pick up the phone and give us a call.
By starting the conversation, how have you seen that impact? How does that impact people?
Always in a positive way, because like I say, that first call is the hardest one that you'll ever make, is to kind of talk to someone and say, I'm struggling and this is what I'm struggling with. And it actually makes you realise of kind of all the things you are dealing with as well. And then you're not on your own. There's always someone there to help you. But that, like I say, that first call is always the hardest. And then it does get easier. And we do try to make it as a stress-free application as possible, really.
Well, I mean, I can hear you in the office on the phone to beneficiaries, and I think you're exactly what somebody needs on the other side of the phone, especially if you're going through a hard time. I think like the way that you guys like approach conversations where you are, you're on a mission, you are there to help people, but in a really empathetic and not in a patronizing way. I think how you and the team go about those conversations makes all the difference.
That's really good to hear, because I think it's always nice to be able to be a human at the end of the phone, and you're not scripted and you're not having to say these certain words. As many places you call up and you're asking for help, it'll be sound like a bit of a robot. So it's nice to have that personal touch and listen. And sometimes that's all it takes, is that just someone wants to just be listened to. And they don't want an answer. They don't want it to be fixed. They just want to say, this is what's going on in my life. And then what can you do to kind of help me?
Amazing.
So if we feel that it's quite a complex case and we need a little bit more information, or we need to have an understanding of how people are living, we do have a team of volunteers that we can call up and ask them to go out and visit our beneficiaries. And they can get an understanding, because they'll see how they're living. They can have a more personal, and people open up more when you're on a one-to-one, you're on a face-to-face as well. So again, they can get us more information, and then we can really, really maximise any support that can be offered. Like I say, it could be a simple thing that someone's asking us for a washing machine, but our volunteers will go out there and see that they need carpet, or they haven't got anywhere to sit, or they've got no beds, but actually they're too proud to ask for that. It just is a washing machine. And then that's what I'm saying. We can then maximise any support that we can offer.
And are most of our volunteers people who have worked in the trade themselves?
All our volunteers are ex-licensees, or actually some of them are still working within the industry as well. They've all been DBS checked as well, so they're all safe. They know what they're talking about, and most of them have had probably about 30, 40 years experience, and they know from that side of it as well of what people are going through and how they can best support them.
That's amazing to have somebody come in and being able to speak to somebody face to face. I can imagine will often make the world of difference to somebody who is, going through a really tough time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you see someone and you can relate to them and you can read their body language, and you just engage and have a really nice conversation, and it's not just all over the phone, and that when you put the phone down, you're on your own, you've still got someone there who's going to really listen to you, and you know that you've been listened to.
You touched on how we work with other charities, Hospitality Action and the Drinks Trust. Uh-huh. What qualifies somebody to kind of come to the LTC versus Hospitality Action?
So ours is more if you've worked in licensed premises. that we can help you with. Hospitality action doesn't necessarily have to be in licensed premises. It can be in a cafe. That you'll be able to, as long as you have been in hospitality. So if you've been working as a housekeeper, for example, in a hotel, you would go to hospitality action. You wouldn't come to us because you haven't worked serving. So we help people who serve, sell, produce, or distribute alcohol. Whereas hospitality action is, as long as you've been in hospitality in hotels, if you're a cleaner, if you're a housekeeper, then we can help everyone. They can help everyone in hospitality.
Okay. And the Drinks Trust, do we do a similar thing?
We do. Again, theirs is within licensed premises as well.
Okay.
Their grants are limited to £600, so they'll help somebody up to £600.
And the licensed trade charities grants
will go up to £5,000. It'll go
Okay.
to committee, and depending on the circumstances, the case will be heard at committee, and they can award anything up to £5,000.
And what happens at the committee?
So there'll be a group of 12 trustees on our committee, and they'll hear the case that we present a case. So once we've spoken to someone and we've got all the details, we've got all the financial assessments, we have a really good understanding of the circumstances, why they're in it and how they can best get out of it, and give a resolution really that we feel that by doing this is how we can put them back in a better place. The committee will then sit and they'll listen to the case, and then they'll make a decision on what support can be offered. And then we go back to the beneficiary and we say, this is what you've been awarded and how it's going to work.
That has been amazing, and it's really good to get a detailed insight into support available from the licensed trade charity and kind of the process that people will go through. So thank you so much, and thank you so much for the wonderful work that you do and for joining today.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.